All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Matty here from Chill TCG. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the top 16 deck lists from our massive tournament, Chill Series number 34, which again was sponsored by PTCGO Zone. You guys should go check them out. Go give them a follow on Twitter. They were the reason why, we were able to kind of make this tournament happen. And if you guys don't know, this was the biggest tournament on the Play.Limitless platform of all time. We capped at 750 players on the dot. It could have been more than that, actually, but we limited it because, and the reason for that was that every player who played in the tournament got a free shiny Crobat code courtesy of PTCGO Zone on top of the 250 Battle Styles packs, which were given to top 16, right, as prizing. So, that was of course why we had so many players in the tournament for the most part. But you guys all came out and played. It was a really great competition, and a lot of really great decks made top 16. But yeah, anyway, that's what we're doing today. I apologize last week. I wasn't able to showcase the winning deck, and I wasn't able to do the top 16 deck list video. I've just been really busy. I just started my new job, so I do apologize for that. We're a minute in, so I don't know why I'm still talking here. We're gonna go to standings. We're gonna go ahead and just take a look at our top 16 competitors here. Okay, so right off the bat, number 16 is The Lantern 2002, and he's from Great Britain. A lot of kind of similarities here in this top 16. There's going to be quite a few Victini VMAXs that we're going to be taking a look at, and a handful of ADPizations as well. But The Lantern 2002 from the UK got 16th in the tournament right on the dot there, and he was playing Victini VMAX. Victini VMAX is insanely good. Now, this is an interesting Victini list. Now, the big Victini list that popped up recently, thanks to a lot of people, but also Koichi Komura, who we'll take a look at in just a bit, kind of popularized the Galarian Rapidash V and Victini VMAX combo, because those two cards do go together very, very well. But this list here is more just straight Victini VMAX. We're not kind of running the Galarian Rapidash, but, this is a really good list in its own right. Honestly, running a 3-3 Victini VMAX is pretty normal in your Victini deck, but this list is a little bit different because we're not running Galarian Rapidash, but we do have a 2-2 Crobat Dedenne lineup, as well as an Eldegoss to kind of draw cards, get our supporters back from the discard pile, kind of give the deck a little bit more consistency since this is a welder deck, so it can be a little bit hard to draw cards when you want them to, but I think that running 2-2 Crobat Dedenne is good in a list like this because it helps you draw cards without using a supporter. That way we can use and draw into Welder when we use it when we draw into it. So I like it. And then we have a Heatran GX and a Reshiram and Charizard GX. Those are going to be our two secondary attackers. Pretty much all we need in matchups where Victini VMAX isn't going to be that useful against other, tag team decks, things like ADP, Pikarom, Mewtwo Decks. So, those cards are really good for those matchups. But we do have a Volcanion as a starting option. I guess it's also in there if you're going against things like Decidueye or Altaria. It's going to be a pretty good option. And then, like I said, we have the Eldegoss, and we do have a Mew in our deck. And the Mew's there mainly because we do have two Crobats, two Dedennes. We're going to want to play those, but we don't want things like Urshifu and Pikarom to snipe those guys on our bench, right? Things like Cramorant. So I think that the Mew is actually really smart in the deck. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. Normal Pokemon lineup. 4 Boss, 4 Welder. Pretty normal for Victini. Two very dangerous supporter cards that go very well in the deck. And we also have 1 Marnie, just sprinkled in there for consistency reasons. 4 Quick Balls. We're running 4 Crushing Hammers in our deck. So that kind of makes a little bit more sense looking at the list, why it's looked a little bit different to me. Yeah, 4 Hammers is not something typically run in Victini or in Welder decks for that matter, but definitely seems pretty good. I think that energy removal is pretty much needed in Victini, especially to have a good matchup against Luke Metal. Because you want to win that matchup, any matchup against a metal type deck as often as possible. So the hammers, I guess, are there to knock off the coating energies. Typically, you might just see a couple fan-up waves in the deck, but 4 Crushing Hammers, definitely an interesting choice. 4 Pokegears to find our supporters because we don't have a lot of them. 3 Pokegears, 3 Switch, 1 Escape Rope. I like all that. 1 Reset Stamp, Cherish Ball, Air Balloon, and then 3 Earth 11 Energies. It's a cool list. It is a cool list. Victini Hammers, I don't know necessarily where this stands on the hierarchy of Victini deck lists, but I do like this one a lot. Shout out to the Lantern. All right, we're gonna take a look at Magwai Master from the US. Got 15th. Also playing Victini. We'll see if his list is different. And yeah, okay, so this is the more traditional version of Victini that we normally see. We have the Scoop Up Net, Stellar Wish, Jirachi engine. And this is going to be one of the best engines in the game to draw cards, to find trainer cards off the top of our deck. So definitely really good. But when we're running the Scoop Up Net engine, we can run things like Giratina, and this is really all you need, along with 4 Scoop Up Nets to get rid of the coating energies. when you're playing Luke Metal. And you'll notice that similar to the last list, the Pokemon lineup is very similar. But we don't have Volcanion. We have one less Crobat, but we do have a couple Galarian Rapidash Vs thrown in there. And again, this is that kind of perfect combo that a lot of people are running right now. Because, we don't have Psychic Energies, but we have Fire, which works with this colorless attack cost here for Galarian Rapidash and Libra Horn. And that's going to drop any of our opponent's Pokemon, even if they're on the bench, down to 100 HP, which is perfect because Victini VMAX does 100 damage for 2 energies, and then it does 120 more if it's a V Pokemon. So definitely really good. It's just a phenomenal card, realistically, with Victini. And then we do still have the Heatran and Reshiram and Charizard in there, and that's again going to be for those other tag team matchups where it's useful. But the rest of the deck is very similar. 3 bots instead of 4 I find interesting, but we do have double reset stamp in the list. Everything else in here is pretty normal. So here it is. This is the more kind of normalized, kind of popular, successful Victini list, but Victini is such a good card right now in our format right now. Definitely the most played and probably one of the best fire type decks in our format, so definitely super cool. Shout out to you, Magui Master, no idea. At number 14 we have Tommy B89, Chill Series regular. We see him around here a lot. He's a great player from the US, 12-4, got 14th, and he was playing Psychic Mewtwo. This might even be the only Psychic Mewtwo anywhere in our top 16. We used to take a look at this every week for like a month straight. It was Psychic Mewtwo all the time, especially early on in the Battle Styles format. We are moving into Chilling Reign soon. We have about a week, I think, from right now for when it is released. And a week from Wednesday, we'll see those decks incorporated into Chill Series tournaments as well as Chilling Reign's prizing. So this Wednesday is it's the format finale of Battle Styles. And then the week after that, we go right into Chilling Reigns, new decks, new cards, and as well as new packs. The new packs will be given as prizing, so definitely excited for that for sure. But Psychic Mewtwo, I don't know where it'll be after Chilling Reigns comes out. I think a lot of people who are looking to play Psychic might prefer the Shadow Rider sort of archetype when that comes out in Chilling Reigns, so that'll be fun, and that'll be really interesting. But for now, Psychic Mewtwo is Psychic Mewtwo, and it is a really fun list. And I'm not going to go super in-depth with it because I've talked about it a lot of times here on the channel. But one thing to note is we do have Greninja Gx thrown in here, and that's mainly there for the Altaria and Decidueye matchups because we can hit for that one. I believe it's 130. It might be 120. I think it's 130. Miss Slash for water and a colorless, which is a very good attack in this matchup. It pretty much auto wins those Decidueye and Altaria matchups, so you might as well just run it. We get that in the discard pile, and we have 3 Mewtwo's to utilize it, so you should never lose that matchup. It's just one card to include in your deck as well. So I like it. I do. Everything else in here is pretty normal. Just looking at it, everything else in here is all normal stuff. But it's a very good deck. One of my favorite decks, honestly, of this format. We saw a lot of different decks in Battle Styles, and this Psychic Mewtwo deck really was one of my favorites. Shout out to you, Tommy B. I think you are the only Psychic Mewtwo. Yeah, we only had one other Mewtwo deck in general, and that was Grass Mewtwo up there at the top. But shout out to you, Tommy. Next up, we have Carlos Lopez from Brazil. Got 13th, and he's also playing Victini VMAX. So our second to highest Victini VMAX. Let's take a look. Okay, so this list is very similar to the last one that we saw. However, we are incorporating a Kricketune V into our list. And now I like Kricketune. I really do. I kind of put it below things in terms of its overall usefulness. I kind of put it below Eldegoss, Crobat, and Dedenne. So, it wouldn't be my first choice in terms of a support or 2 prize Pokemon to throw in my list. But if you have room, and honestly, if we're running all 4 of those types of Pokemon in our deck, we have a lot of different options. Of course, it is very good. You slap an air balloon on that thing, it's probably one of the best pivots in the game. Draw till you have 4 in your hand, and then you can free retreat back out with air balloon right into any attacker that you're going to be using that turn. So I do really like Kricketune. The problem is you only have so much bench space right now in this format. And if we're benching a Crobat, Dedenne, Eldegoss throughout the game, we only have 2 spots on our bench for more other Pokemon, which are probably just going to be attackers in here like Victini or a Reshizard, or a Mew, right? So there's just a lot of times where we don't have the bench space or enough bench space to play all of those different support Pokemon that we want, but it is a really good card, and I do like Kricketune a lot. And it seems like it could be really good in Victini. There's a lot of times where you kind of go down to a small hand size after you kind of burn a lot of cards. And you just, you're just playing off the top deck sometimes because it's a welder deck, that happens. But I think Kricketune can be really good, And you also have things like Giant Hearth and a lot of burnable cards that you can kind of just play and discard them from your hand if you don't necessarily need them. You can probably just play a Quick Ball. You can play a Pokecom, a Switch, whatever it might be, or Hearth away something, right, and discard that so that we can draw more cards with Kricketune. So I do like it. I really do. It's interesting, though. Definitely interesting. Let me know Do you play Kricketune in your list right now? I think Kricketune will be really popular soon, like after rotation. When that happens, I think Kricketune will see a lot of play. But for now, it's kind of a niche, sort of more niche type thing. Kind of like Silvally was at the time back in the day. Anyway, Pidgeotto Master, 12th in the tournament from the U.S., and he was playing Tempo Zards. We had 2 Blounds, and they're right next to each other. This one's probably more of a straight Blounds. We'll see in a bit, but this one was Tempo Zard. And again, now, I always have this argument. This is kind of an old format version of a Welder archetype, right? It's very different. I mean, Blacephalon is, again, still one of the most powerful attackers in our game right now. We still have Heatran GX, Reshiram, and Charizard GX. We have Cramorant. Those are our attackers in the deck. But there are some of the best attackers in the game, and it's really up for debate. When you see Welder decks, you don't see anything other than Blacephalon, Tempo Zard, or Victini VMAX, which at this point is interesting to me. We still have things like Centiskorch in our format. We still have, Welder Mewtwo people could be playing. What other fire-type decks are there? I honestly don't know. But those are other options, I suppose. But Green Zard was another one that we saw for a little bit. But right now in the format, it's either Tempo Zard, Blacephalon, or Victini. And this is kind of the older style of fire decks. But again, in my opinion, especially in a best-of-3 format, most of these tournaments we take a look at, the majority of the matches are going to be best-of-1. But in a best-of-3 format tournament, which we see sometimes like with GG Tour events, Tempo Zard always outshines almost all the other decks in our format. So I understand how powerful Tempo Zard can be. I am going to be glad for it to rotate, to be honest with you. I'm not super, a big fan of the deck and its playstyle, but I understand how absolutely phenomenal it can be. And I think it'll be around for a very, very long time, or at least after rotation. It's been around for a long time, and it'll continue to be around for a few more months until it rotates. But anyway, shout out to Pidgeotto Master. Next up, we have Siami R, 11th, and he's from Malaysia. Super cool, from Malaysia. And he was playing Blound. It looks to be also Tempo Zard. Yeah, so it's still Tempo Zard, but it's just a different count. We're running 3 Blacephalon instead of 2, so Limitless recognizes it technically as a different archetype. But it's almost exactly the same list. I think we're just investing more into Blacephalon as an attacker in the deck. That's why we have 3 of them, which I think is good. I mean, I don't know. Again, these aren't decks that I play. I never play Welder, first of all. And I never play Blacephalon at all, or Victini. I just don't play Fire, really, at all. So I don't know much about Blacephalon or Tempo Zard, but I do know how crazy Blacephalon can be, and maybe it is better to run 3 in your deck, because we still have 1 Cram, 1 Heatran, 1 Reshizard. So realistically, we have 3 Blounds, and then 3 secondary or other attackers in the deck, so 6 total. And maybe that's the right way to do it. I really don't know. But other than that, these are kind of typical Tempo Zard lists at this point in our format right now in our metagame. So if you're interested in playing Blounds, if you're a Blounds player, maybe these lists are interesting to you as you kind of watch the archetype develop further into this Battle Styles format. And it could be, Blounds could make a huge comeback in Chilling Reigns format as well, right? I mean, we're going to have that new set for a few months until rotation, and maybe Blacephalon kind of comes back on top, because I do know how absolutely powerful it can be. And I would not be surprised at all to see it kind of stick around and remain as one of our best decks in our format. So there we go. Couple Tempo Zards sprinkled in there. It's always kind of fun to take a look at them. So shout out to Siami, I'm not sure. We have Zehong Lui. And honestly, I feel like we take a look at this dude every week in Chill Series, at least in our top 16 videos. I mean, he's super consistently up here, and he's from Taiwan. A lot of great players from Taiwan as well. He was playing Luke Metal Zacian, our only Luke Metal here in top 16, so going to be interesting to go and take a look at his list. It looks to be pretty much a normal Luke Metal list, and yeah, it does kind of seem that way to me. For the most part, I mean, this is Tag Call Engine Luke Metal. The Pokemon lineup is all pretty standard. A lot of the supporter lineup, very, very standard. 4 Saucers, 4 Tag Calls, 4 Switch, 3 Lilies, Pokédoll. We do have 2 Quick Balls in the list, and a lot of people kind of, it's interesting, with 2 Capture Energies, 2 Quick Balls, as well as 4 Zacians in our deck out of 8 Pokemon total. The likelihood of you not starting with Zacian is extremely low, and if anybody plays Luke Metal, they know that starting with Zacian on that first turn is probably one of the most crucial things that, you can kind of have to deal with when you're playing Luke Metal, because if you don't start with Zacian and you don't get those Intrepid Swords off immediately, because it's a slow-paced deck, realistically, you don't kind of want to move too slowly when you're playing Luke Metal. So getting those Intrepid Swords off turn after turn, especially in those first 2 or 3 turns, could be extremely important. So I think 2 Quick Ball is interesting. I don't know if it's entirely necessary, though. 3 metal goggles, 1 cape of toughness. Only 4 tool cards. I know a lot of people are running 5, maybe 6 tool cards in Luke Metal, but I think that 3 goggles is correct. But you might want maybe more than 1 cape of toughness typically, but I don't know. I haven't played Luke Metal in a little while now. And on top of this, we have 2 power plants. So we've got 2 power plants and 1 Wonder Lab, and this is interesting because you kind of see this in Luke Metal now. We used to just run like 2 or 3 Chaotic Swells to have a better matchup against Welder decks. But a lot of Welder decks are kind of running those Fan of Waves Giratina, so it isn't necessarily, a great matchup anyway. So we're kind of prepping for other matchups like, I don't know, like ADP or E-Turn or Mewtwo decks, things like that, that Luke Metal can have a pretty good, obviously time with, which is why I think that the 2 power plants and 1 Wonder Lab are in the deck here. 10 metal energies, 3 coding, 2 capture. Everything else in here is pretty normal. And Luke Metal is a phenomenal list. Not as good as it was for a short bit there. It was the deck that I primarily played in Players Cup. It's what I used to qualify. And during those tournaments, at least, it was absolutely phenomenal. It felt really, really good. I don't know if it is that good at this point in our format. We haven't seen it win a lot recently, but it always gets in the top 16 like every week. But anyway, shout out to Zay Hong, our dude. Next up, we have Cash Fender. Cashman, man. He's from Singapore, and he bubbled out, so he got 9th in the tournament. I don't know if we've ever seen Cash get a top 8 at Chill Series. He gets so close all the time. We always see him high up here, but 9th this week, so just right away. Just right off of, he bubbled out by Resistance, I believe, as well, because all these people were 12 and 4, which is just wild. I think, yeah, the rest of them ID'd, actually, so he didn't bubble out, but he was right on the cusp at 12 and 4. But anyway, he was playing ADP Zacian. We had 3 of them here in our top 9 players. Let's take a look at his ADP list. Okay, I like it. Now, ADP, to me, feels like a deck where we can kind of run techs at this point in our format. I think that Aegislash is almost needed. If we're not running Aegislash, we lose to that big horde of Altaria decks and Desi decks that are still in our format right now. The Empoleon V is interesting. I don't know if it's that good, but I know that it is very, very good just against the Victini matchups. Because Victini VMAX, of course, you typically run Scoop Up Net Jirachi engine as well. So Empoleon, not only with ADP boost for 1 water and 2 colorless, can one-shot Victini VMAX, which again is just wild, right? Just a really good option to have it in the list. But on top of that, its abilities, Emperor's Eyes, it shuts off the abilities of any basic Pokemon that don't have a rule box. So when you're going against a Fire-type deck that runs Jirachi, Empoleon is literally the perfect counter because you can shut off the Jirachi's ability in the active spot. They cannot Stellar Wish, which a lot of times is terrible for them. And then on top of that, we're one-shotting Victini VMAXs after the ADP boost. So just absolutely phenomenal. It really is. It's very cool. It's a very good meta call as well, and I like it in ADP. But yeah, everything else in here is pretty normal. Again, I'm not going to go too far into it, this ADP list. We have a few more to look at as well. 3 Zacians, 2 ADPs with 2 Crobat, 2 Dedenne, and Eldegoss, Mawile. Typically, we see 4 Zacians in ADP, but everything else in here is pretty normal, and all stuff that I really like to see. And it's definitely cool. It's ADP, and it's not running hammers as well, which is just a bonus. So you got to love that. Big shout out to Cash. You got to love it, Cash. Congrats again on a good placement. Next up, we're going to get into our top 8. So these are the people that did make top cut. For those of you that don't know, we typically do 9 or 10 rounds of Swiss right at the beginning, best of 1. And then we cut, people who have at least 6 or 7 wins up those, first segment of Swiss rounds. And then we go into phase 2. They play 5 or 6 more rounds. And then after that second phase of Swiss, we cut to 8 players. And that's where we get into our top cut bracket. That's how we run Chill Series tournaments, for those of you who didn't know that. So our top 8 was the people that made it into the bracket where they played best of 3 matches to see, of course, who won the tournament. And it's single elimination. So right here in top 8, we're starting off with our guy Anti, Logan McKay, one of the most active and most successful people in the online game right now these days from Canada. A Chill Series admin, just a good friend of mine as well. So awesome to see him do well. He was playing Pikarom. We had a couple Chill Series admins, Gabe Smart as well, both playing Pikarom in top 8. Let's take a look at his Pikarom list. I think that Gabe and Logan were playing the same 60, so we're not going to spend too much time, this when we look at this again. But anyway, this is Pikarom right now, and for a lot of people, they might be sick of seeing Pikarom. Again, it just might be something that they're just over it. It's like the flavor of last month. It's like it's last month's deck, but except it's like last month's deck for the past 2 years almost, right? So it's just really funny to take a look at. But if for those of you who are interested or you know, you just kind of want to see what people are playing for Peak ROM these days, not much has changed. But I think for this tournament, the 2 stealthy hoods was a little bit different. Just something that we don't typically always see, right? In Peak ROM. So it was cool to have it in there this week. And both of these guys, of course, great players, but I think this list did really well for him this week of Chill Series. But yeah, everything else in here is pretty normal, other than the 2 stealthy hoods. With, you know, we don't have big charms, so we have stealthy hood. We're still running 4 hammers. We're not running energy switch or tag switch, which in my opinion is a really good card in Peak, but these guys know more than me, and of course they did extremely well. 8th out of 750 players is pretty darn good if you ask me, and this was the Peak ROM list they're playing. 4 Bolton is, again, kind of the standard at this point. A lot of people were playing 3. People were kind of on the bubble. They're like, do I play 4 or 3 Bolton? Is it necessary to play 4? To me, it's much like ADP, where, you know, Zacian is such an important card, or when you're playing Luke Metal, you know, those are the backbones of the deck. They're the card that we really want to start the game with, and that's why we typically run 4 of them. If you run 4 Zacians in ADP or Luke Metal, you might as well run 4 Bolton in Peak ROM. Bolton is pretty much the electric type Zacian at this point. Just a couple of these dogs, these Doges, just dominating the format, really. But yeah, 2 Dedenne, 2 Peak, 2 Mewtwo, and 1 Raichu in there, 1 Crobat, Aldagas, Tapu Koko, Prism Star. So all good stuff. Again, huge shout out to Logan. Shout out to everybody who plays Peak ROM at this point in the format. Peak ROM is still good. Again, a lot of you guys are like, oh, but like, you know, like there's things, you know, Peak ROM's not good right now. There's fighting type decks and whatnot. If you take a look here, you know, we do have some Urshifus, but none of them in top 16, realistically. But you know, we do have peaks up here. Peak ROM is really good. It's just Urshifu isn't as dominant as it was at the beginning of Battle Styles, to where at this point it is still relevant to play things like E-Turn and Peak ROM, although we haven't seen any E-Turn this tournament. There was 1 here, 1 down here, but other than that, E-Turn was pretty much non-existent as well. And another thing to note, the only archetypes here that were kind of post-Sword and Shield format decks that made top 16 were actually only the Victinis down here, and then we also had a Dragapult, and then this Victini. So Dragapult and Victini seems to be the only 2 decks, at least it were this week, that are still relevant or have kind of still been good, even though they were released after the Sword and Shield block, which is interesting just to note. Anyway, we're going to get into Gabe Shumway, another good friend of mine, 7th in the tournament from the U.S., and he was playing Control. So very cool to see. This is a Lowland Muck Control. Yeah, it's like also have a 2-2 lineup of Altaria in here. So I'll show this for the Control players. I know Gabe's probably watching this, or if he is watching this, he's probably like, come on, Maddie, like break this down. You know, let everybody know how awesome my deck list is. But I apologize. I don't play Control. I don't know much about it, really at all. I know a little bit. I mean, you just kind of try to want to set up a board state and kind of go through the same types of cards and shuffle them back into our decks with Snack Search, Munchlax, and just kind of keep on the pressure. And I don't know exactly what the main win conditions are for this deck. I kind of feel like it's locking things in the active spot, right? So eventually, they run out of energies, and you kind of just keep things in the active spot that can't get out of the active spot once they run out of switch cards or whatnot. The Alolan Muck also shuffles item cards off the top of our decks, or discards them off the top of your opponent's deck. So eventually they just run out of item cards, and they just don't have a lot of stuff to do, and they just play off the top deck, and we can kind of slowly assert dominance over the course of the game. So it's a very cool list. And Gabe is a phenomenal player. It's a deck that I have never played, will probably never play, but I do really kind of appreciate the depth that this deck has, as well as the skill it takes to do well with a deck like this, especially in a best-of-1 tournament where the rounds are only 25 minutes. It's just absolutely wild to me. So big shout-out to Gabe, phenomenal player. Very cool. And Control, man, top 8. There you go. People don't really think about Control at this point in our standard format. Like, it's not super relevant, but that's only because it's not really, like, winning a whole lot. It's not, like, super dominant when it wins, because we don't see that a lot. But it still places fairly well, and there aren't a lot of people playing it, but when they do play it and they're good players, we typically see some success with it, which is pretty cool. So anyway, big shout out to Gabe Shumway. Might be the most interesting list that we're going to see all video here. Next up, Alex Hamilton and Yaoi. We're going to get into a couple ADP lists here. just to kind of in stark contrast of those control decks. But this is ADP, a bit more normalized than Cash's ADP list, the last one that we take a look at. We have an Oricorio GX in here, which is funny and good. I think Oricorio in ADP is really good, but we do not have Empoleon or Aegislash. So no techs in terms of tech attackers in the deck, but we do have some extra kind of support Pokemon, draw support Pokemon in Oricorio GX here, which I do find to be very good. Other than that, just consistency ADP with the 4 energy switch, 4 cherish balls, 2 spinners, 2 ropes, 2 switches. I like it. You know, yeah. To me, hammers in ADP just feels like it's like a cheap shot. Like you're like, all right, like my deck is very heavily based off just drawing the cards that I need, and then on top of that, I'm gonna get heads throughout the game and just make it that much more difficult for you to win if things are going well for me. So I like just straight ADP. To be honest with you, I think it's a really cool deck. It's fun. It's fun to play. I know a lot of people are probably upset that I said that, but it's a fun deck to play. Playing against it is awful though. But you know, here it goes. A lot of people say ADP doesn't take skill. It's a skillless deck. That's not true. Although you can win with it, even if you don't really know what you're doing. But if you do know what you're doing, you're going to have much more success with ADP. There's a lot of sequencing. There's a lot of room for error when you're playing ADP. It's just not a deck that necessarily requires really high-level play to win, and that's what I think a lot of people get confused with ADP. Next up, we have Yaoi, 1234. This guy is from Taiwan. Yet another Taiwanian, if that's how you say it. Probably not. And here we go. Okay. All right. So, again, this guy's from Taiwan, so he's not Japanese, but Asian, over in Asia, or in that segment of the world, and Japan. People play decks a little bit differently. I don't know if they watch my videos per se, but a lot of times when they build decks and they play, kind of meta decks that we think are meta, they typically do things just a little bit different. And this is kind of a good example of that. I know that this isn't a deck that people in like the U.S. typically play a whole lot, but he's from Taiwan and did actually extremely well in the tournament with this ADP list. So kind of cool, kind of something to keep in mind. Of course, we're running the Shady Dealings, draw engine with the Drizzles and the Inteleons there. When we evolve those Pokemon, we can search our deck for trainer cards. They're actually incredibly good. We see it a lot in other archetypes, like Inteleon runs the Shady Dealings. Ice Rider Calyrex coming up in Chilling Reigns will probably run Shady Dealings. But now we see it in ADP. It's actually cool. It's a really good just consistency engine. And I like that. We also have an Oranguru as well, which is also kind of a niche thing in ADP. We have a Mew too. We also have a Mew. And actually, now that I look at this, we only have 2 Zacians in our deck, which doesn't seem very good to me, even though it did very well. But you know what? This guy, and he also only has 7 Metal Energies, so I don't know. Again, I don't know anything anymore. This was our highest placing ADP of the tournament, so maybe that's maybe we just gotta kind of have to open our eyes a little bit. Super cool, just very cool, honestly. I wouldn't say, I never typically say that about ADP, but this is a very, very cool ADP list. So shout out to Yaoi. I love this a whole lot. We even have a Big Charm and a Vitality Band in here. Vitality Band is an interesting one. It's interesting because we have Rusted Sword. So you might be thinking, like, why run a Vitality Band instead of Rusted Sword? I guess it's just because we can attach it to ADP as well if we want to attack with ADP, and then that brings us up to 190 damage, which is enough to KO things like Heatran and Victini V, so I guess it is kind of relevant right now. But also, like, Zacian after the ADP boost is 260, so, Vitality Band on Zacian is 270, and that's typically really all you need to KO most tag team Pokemon, so maybe it's fine. Maybe Vitality Band just is better in the long run. I really don't know. I don't know. It's very interesting, nonetheless, but yeah, here it is. We also have a Level Ball thrown in there, and a Scoop Up Net, so, absolutely insane. Anyway, I don't know what to say about that. I just don't have much to say. That was very fun, very cool to take a look at. Next up, we've got Gabriel Smart Tcg, our #1 ranked player from last season of Chill Series, getting another top 4 here in our 750 player tournament. Again, one of the top players in our online game right now. Seems to play Peak ROM quite a bit. He's definitely a Peak ROM player, likes to play the peaks, and he's very good at playing the peaks, for sure. Let's take a look. I think this is the same exact list as Anti's. Yep. So again, they were kind of playing the same list. I think they probably tested together, which makes sense. They're very good players, good friends. So, we see them both make top 8 out of 750 players. So yeah, I mean, again, if you're playing Peak right now, this is a really good list. I think the Stealthy Hood might have been kind of a meta call at the moment. If the meta shifts, then Stealthy Hood might be that card that you kind of switch out. It looks like Anti was actually is also playing a Big Charm. I don't think that Gabe was playing a Big Charm in his list, so I don't know exactly what they cut or what they were changed. Maybe Logan was playing. Logan wasn't playing Big Charm. Gabe is, so maybe Logan was playing Double Swell, or something different of the such. But I don't believe Logan was playing Anti. I don't think Anti was playing Big Charm, but Gabe was. But either way, here you go, Pikarom. Enjoy it. This is what's still doing well in tournaments, and it's a very good list for sure. Danny Altavilla always does really well with Pikarom. Vitor Lugan does well with Pikarom. Gabriel Smart, all great players that are still on that Pikarom hype. But yeah, shout out to Gabe. Big shout out to Gabe. Next up at third in the tournament, we have Poke09. This dude is from Thailand. So again, so many Asian representatives, people from Asia in our tournaments. And again, I just want to give a huge thanks because I don't know if people really realize it. We run these tournaments on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So the idea that we have so many people from the other side of the world playing in our tournaments is actually, it's just so amazing to me. And not only that they do very well. They play the whole tournament. They go till the very end, top 4, right? Or finals sometimes. And it's crazy to me because they're playing for about 8 hours all through the night or early morning. So very phenomenal. And not only people from Asia, people from Europe as well. Stefan here from France. Those guys are literally playing in the middle of the night. So it's just awesome to see so much support from people that aren't in U.S. time zones. It really is absolutely incredible. So big shout out to all of them. Anyway, though, Poke-O, and he's playing Dragapult, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting, nonetheless. It's interesting to kind of just see Dragapult at this point in our format. And this is a this is a funny Dragapult list as well. It's kind of like Psychic Box. To me, it's almost very much like Victini. I mean, it's different than Victini. I don't know why I would say that, but anyway, it's a very cool list. And maybe this is the way we play Dragapult now. I know a lot of people try Dragapult like 100 different ways at the beginning of Battle Styles format. Some of them did very well for a bit, and then they kind of quickly drop back down and were kind of put away in favor of Mewtwo decks because they were just a little bit more impressive in some facets of the game. But here we go, Dragapult, third out of 750 players. And it's a bit of a different version of Dragapult as well. We have a 3-3 lineup, Dedenne, Crobats, so we're not running Jirachi Engine, not running Scoop Up Net, although we are running Scoop Up Net, but not the Jirachi Engine. One Zigzagoon. Again, that just goes with the Scoop Up Nets. We have an Alakazam V and a Galarian Rapidash V, which are really cool and interesting secondary attackers. I believe Mind Reader is the attack from Alakazam V, which does more damage the more cards that are in our opponent's hand, which is just interesting. For only 2 energies, it's a very interesting attack. Maybe it's there for Zen Spoon. Maybe we have it for Zen Spoon. I really don't know. But Galarian Rapidash V, we know what that guy does, so cool to see that in Dragapult as well. It actually makes a lot of sense to me that Galarian Rapidash V would be put in with Dragapult. That's just definitely cool to me. It's definitely pretty cool. And then of course we have a Gengar Mimikyu GX, which is kind of that other favored secondary option that goes with Dragapult all the time. We've kind of seen that for a bit, which I like to see there. And then we have a Giratina, we have Mew, and we have Mewtwo. All stuff that goes well with Scoop Up Net. All things that they're psychic types, but they're good in a lot of decks. So makes sense they go in Dragapult here. 3 Boss, 3 Research, 1 Marnie, 1 Giovanni's Exile. The Giovanni's Exile to me is very funny, very interesting, but probably pretty good as well. And again, it seems like a Japanese type list, like somebody from across the world making lists like this, but doing well with them. 4 Quick Ball, 4 Crushing Hammers, just Dragapult things. You got to run Crushing Hammers because we're manually attaching as well, so it just kind of makes sense where we want to do well against other decks that might be doing manual attachment, right? So maybe just run 4 Crushing Hammers. 4 Scoop Up Nets, that's going to go for the Zigzagoons, the Mewtwo's, the Giratinas. I like all that. More energy denial, some extra damage counters being placed. I like that. Mewtwo to get the supporters back. So all super cool things. But we also have 4 Turbo Patch. The 4 Turbo Patch to me is just like maybe it's just massive brain. I really don't know. 4 Crushing Hammer, 4 Turbo Patch. That's a lot of coin flips. So you might be thinking this deck isn't very consistent. It's not based off of consistency. But realistically, like if we're talking mathematically, we hit both of those cards twice throughout the game. So that's plus 2 energy attachments throughout a game and minus 2 for your opponent. So that kind of makes things technically seem like it would be on the even standing ground, because Dragapult doesn't attach as quickly. It doesn't, build up energies as quickly as other decks. But, with the hammers and the turbo patches, maybe it just kind of evens out. So maybe that's the way we play Dragapult right now. Definitely super interesting nonetheless. And we can turbo patch to things like Dragapult V, Alakazam V, Rapidash V. So that's all just stuff to kind of keep in mind. 4 Switch, 2 Cherish Balls, 1 Tackle, Reset Stamp, and a Chaotic Swell. All kind of normal stuff that you would kind of expect to see in this list. The 2 Cherish Balls is interesting. I guess it's just in there because Gengar Mimikyu is really important in some matchups, and finding Dedenne is also really, really good. So kind of just our best secondary option when it comes to searching for Pokemon off of, other than Quick Ball. Then we have 7 Lightning Energies and 4 Horrors, so that's 11 in total, which is actually a little bit high for Dragapult as well. But I think that you want a decent amount of basics in your deck because running 4 Turbo Patches, right? So, the deck kind of probably wants to move a little bit more quickly, and that's why we have 3 Researches instead of, 3 Marnies and 2 Dedennes as well. So we're going to be discarding quite a bit of cards from the deck, but we have Turbo Patch to get those energies back out of our discard pile and onto our V-type Pokemon. So this might be, in my opinion, perhaps the most viable way to play Dragapult right now in our format. And a lot of people love Dragapult, man. I love it too. It's literally one of the most fun decks I've ever played. And there's a lot more in depth when it comes to Dragapult than other decks. So I like it. I really do. I really do. Hopefully this makes a comeback, and hopefully this becomes an accepted version of Dragapult. Again, Dragapult might be kind of put to the side when Shadow Rider VMAX releases in Chilling Reigns, because it seems to be a much more powerful and fast-paced Psychic type deck. So we'll see. Dragapult might not survive Chilling Reigns, the new format, but if it does, or at least maybe for the next week or so, this is a deck that we'll see some success with. So maybe a deck that I wish I saw earlier. Maybe I wish this was around a month or two ago throughout the earlier Battle Styles format, but it is what it is. Next up, though, we have Koichi Kimura, the Chill Series MVP this season so far. Makes his 3rd finals appearance in like 5 tournaments. Yeah, you heard that right. He's made finals 3 out of 5 times this season of Chill Series. He won 1, he lost 1, went to finals this week, ended up, getting 2nd, which is totally cool. But he was playing that patented Victini VMAX Galarian Rapidash list, which he honestly popularized. Although this week we see that he is running a double V in his list, which is, again, one of my favorite V Pokemon, and just secondary attacking options in our game right now. So definitely really cool to see that in this Victini list, something that I really do appreciate. He is running Scoop Up Net Jirachi Engine with Giratina, all good stuff, 4 Welder, 4 Boss. He does have a Fire Crystal in his list as well. Which I think it's always worth running 1 Fire Crystal in Welder. It's just a +3 energy to your hand mid or late game. So to me, seems absolutely phenomenal just in any deck. So I think it's really, really, really good. And here it is. We saw like 4 Victini lists in this top 16 video, maybe 3 or 4. They were all different, but if I had to pick one, this would be the one. Koichi knows how to play and knows how to build Victini lists. So if you're a Victini player, or if it's a deck that you're interested in, I highly recommend that you go and just play this. This should be the Victini list that you play, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. You guys can do whatever you want, of course. But yeah, here it is. Shout out to Koichi, man. Shout out to Koichi Kimura. Guy is an absolute savage. Stefan Ivanov won the tournament. He was playing Grass Mewtwo. Now, typically I hold this deck off the Grand Finals, or the winning deck, and we do a separate video on it. I've done a video on Grass Mewtwo recently, and I don't have as much time as I did, in the past. These days, I don't have that much time, but Stefan Ivanov, he's from France, won the tournament with Grass Mewtwo. We're going to go ahead and we are going to take a look at his list. For sure. And again, before we talk about this list for the next few minutes, if you guys are interested in watching the Grand Finals match, if you want to see Stefan play Koichi in that best of 3 set, I did post the video. It's on the channel. I posted it the other day, so definitely go check it out. It's got like over 2,000 views at this point, so it's honestly one of the best matches I've ever seen at Chill Series in the finals. So definitely go check it out. This is Grass Mewtwo. It's a Mewtwo deck, and if you guys don't understand the strategy behind it at a basic level, we have Eggrow. That's kind of the main culprit of the deck. Mewtwo is just our better option because it's not weak to fire, has 1 less retreat cost, and it can also use the attacks of other GX Pokemon. So we're going to try to go through Mewtwo if we can, but we want to start our game always with that super growth attack. It doesn't cost any energy, but if we get a Grookey down on our board, which is pretty easy to do with the amount of Quick Balls and Capture Energies, the 2 Goose Mahalas, 4 Tag Calls, so it's pretty easy to get a Grookey down on our board on our first turn. We like to go second as well with the deck. then we can go ahead and evolve that up to a Rillaboom immediately. So once we go into our second turn, we should have an energy on our Mewtwo on board, a Rillaboom on the bench, and we can just start accelerating energies with Voltage Beat while kind of consistently attacking for a lot of really good attackers. We have Calming Hurricane and Tropical Hour with, Egg Row. And then we also have Elegant Soul, Beast Game, Jet Punch with Pheromosa and Buzzwole, but we also have things like Vileplume GX and Dragonite GX and Incineroar GX to copy their attacks as well. Everyone's probably familiar with Mewtwo decks. There's been a lot of them. We saw a Psychic one earlier in the video, and to me, Grass is the best way to play Mewtwo right now in our format. And I love to say it. This is like one of the first times a Grass-type deck has won Chill Series, if not the only time ever in 34 tournaments that a Grass deck has won our tournament. So definitely super cool. Chaotic Spell's cool. Wonder Lab's cool. Tag Call Engine. All this good stuff. 2 Big Charm, 2 Air Balloon. We have an Orguru in the list as well, because why not? As well as Eldegoss. So anyway, that's going to be it. That's the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Matty from Chill TCG. Again, big shout out to PTCGO Zone for making this tournament happen, to making this all possible. Shout out to all 750 of you guys who played this week. Absolutely insane. And we did break our own record, but we broke the record on Limitless for the biggest tournament of all time. So yeah, shout out to everybody. All right, 40 minutes long. That's my bad. We're going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.